think we're live, Alan.
It's right there, live.
Okay.
Live. The Metal Voice live once again here at the big Metal Voice studio. What we got happening today, Jim?
We're going to get Neil Turbin and Tony Dolan, Tony the Demolition Man from Venom Inc. So that's the big topic today, Alan.
What is it, Jim?
Which bands deserve to be in the big four? Which bands, Alan?
Well, what do you mean deserve to be? They are the big four without dispute, right?
There is dispute, Alan. The metal community is in arms. They're saying, you know what? Exodus needs to be there. No, Testament needs to be there. No, scrap this guy, put in that guy.
Trouble needs to be there.
So let's bring in Neil Turbin and Tony Dolan.
Neil Turbin.
Let's see. The links have been sent to them. So, Alan, let's just quickly talk about the metal nominees, the Grammys.
The Grammys. We can talk about that.
As we wait for
I've been
Neil.
waiting. I've sleepless nights, Jim, about the Grammys.
There's the Grammys.
It's so important. The Grammys are so important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about the metal bands. The Grammys.
There we go. Let's go. Let's bring in the guys here. Okay, Tony's here. Tony's
live.
How you doing? Good to see you guys.
So everybody who knows Tony or doesn't know Tony, this is the Demolition Man, Venom Inc.
Good to see you. Good to be
But you know what, Tony? I have to say this. A lot of people, they say he's from Venom Inc., but you know what? He's also from Venom. People have to remember that. You played on 3 Venom albums. You've been in the band for probably 4 years.
Yeah, it's true. Yep.
And so, Tony, as we wait for Neil, tell us what's going on with Venom Inc. I mean, you guys recording an album. What's happening?
Yeah, basically we had a really busy year. We did our last show last Saturday in the UK at a big festival, a New Wave of British Heavy Metal Festival with Girls' School and Vardis and a whole load of bands. And that's our last live show of the year. Now we're just focusing on a new album. When we started doing the Venom Inc. thing, we basically, me and Mantis have been working together. I mean, we all go back to the beginning of time, and I was there, all the way through. So people kind of don't know that we're kind of all been friends and we all were around each other. And so I've kind of been tied into the band forever. And then I stepped in at the end of the 80s. We did a few albums, and then I stepped out again to do some acting and stuff, and they changed the shape. But bringing Abaddon in last year, when me and Mantis were playing together, was kind of just for some fun, and it hit the wall and just spread like wildfire. So
I was there, Tony. I was there in Montreal.
Yes, there you go. And it was, we've been trying to catch
Heavy Montreal, Tony. Oh, wait, Tony, hold that thought for 1 second. The Turbin is on.
Hey,
Neil Turbin.
What's happening?
Hey,
Tony, Neil.
We're just Neil, just so you know, we're just talking to Tony. Just ask him quickly, and we want to ask you right after what's going on with the new album with Venom Inc. Let him finish there, and we'll get right to Neil.
Cool.
All right?
Yeah,
so
I was
Tony,
just saying that. So where we are now is we've stopped playing live so we can actually start recording. Because people, as soon as we went out on tour, at the beginning, people started asking for a live album, and I was like, "Fucking hell, we've only done 2 shows. You got to be joking. Give us a chance." And then everybody says, just keep playing. So we were playing, and then every time we went somewhere, they went, "Mate, put an album together." I was like, "Well, we can't play and put an album together. We got to do one or the other." So I actually had to put the brakes on and go, okay, we finish the year. We don't do anything till April, May. We're going to come back, start in America. We got festival seasons booking like crazy now. But between now and then, we're going to have the album ready, and it'll be signed and out, and we'll be promoting that.
So a potential date. What's the potential date for the album?
Well, we've got a potential month as our target, but not a date. So we're looking at March. We're looking at March 2017. So the labels tend to have their dates that they push the stuff out. But we've got a loose figure of early March to mid-March, and that's what we're talking about. All right,
so in 30 seconds, the Venom Inc. documentary. 30 seconds, just tell us about that.
Basically, I've just been recording every single thing that we've done backstage, on stage, every concert, everything. and I'm working on a whole documentary. It's going to be into a serial, and hopefully we're pitching it for a TV channel wants to pick it up. So it's going to be like a fly on the wall.
And I guess the last question, it's 5 seconds long. What the hell does Kronos think about all of this? What's Kronos saying here?
He loves it. He loves it. He loves it. And when I got my Christmas cards off him this morning, he'd put many kisses on there. So.
All right, let's go to Neil Turbin. Turbin, what's going on, man? Los Angeles.
How you doing there in old London there?
Yeah, I'm all right, Neil. I bet you probably got better weather than me, I guess. But
I don't know. It's like 10 degrees difference out here at night.
Neil, it's friggin'
really?
freezing.
Yeah, it's freezing, man. It's freezing at 52. You know.
Yeah. We feel sorry for you here, Neil.
So, Neil, just before we get started, tell us about your album that you're working on in your tour.
Well, it's not a full tour. I'm just going to do a couple of dates over in Eastern Europe, going over to Prague and to Warsaw. Playing with a great band called Wild Pig over in Czech Republic at Lucerna Music Bar, and also just working on the album with Death Riders. Just talked to Jonas today, Jonas Hornquist, guitar player with Death Riders, and also Bleed the Hunger. We've worked together writing for years and years, 10 years more, and it's just one little thing after another, trying to get those things sorted out. When you've got big business and organization, or if you have your own big studio, then it makes sense to move things quicker. But when everybody's spaced apart, it makes it a little bit more, it's a little more difficult to get everyone working in the same direction at the same time. So these days, the artists, they have to do what they have to do to make it happen. But we're making it happen. And Michelangelo Badio is playing on a couple of songs on the album. So I just was in touch with Michelangelo today from Peru.
Nitro.
Yeah, Nitro's back, right? They're coming out.
The guy with the two guitars going like this.
Yes, the guy he's amazing. He shreds on both hands.
Brilliant.
So
that's convenient.
Neil, did we lose you there?
Michael's Metal Jam. This will be right around the event that there's a big convention there in Anaheim that has to do with musicians, and we're going to be announcing something very soon. So we're excited about that, and there'll be some great artists that'll be a part of it. And as far as Death Riders album, I mean, we've got Matt Thompson from King Diamond on the drums, and we're working through some things as well. We have a few more songs to execute on the basic tracks to add to the number of songs that we have. So this way it'll be a full-length release, and it's something we've worked hard on for a long time. The songs are written. It just needs to get done. And we can't put something out there that's not going to be sounding great like people expect. So, what's the point of not doing something the right way? I mean,
all right, cool. Yeah. So guys, let's get down to it, okay? I'm going to let Alan begin on this.
Me?
Yes.
I don't even know what the topic is.
The topic is, you just came in like 5 minutes, by the way. It's like
I was on a worldwide
tour. He just
tour.
came running in and he goes, okay,
I just popped in, put my bags
so
down.
this is the topic, Alan. Okay.
Top 4.
No.
Top 4.
Which bands deserve to be in the big 4? And I'll read some comments before Alan answers.
Yeah, please.
Venom Inc. Forever. Well, I guess.
There you go.
Okay.
Overkill instead of Anthrax. Testament. Sweden here. Okay, well, Death Angel. And we got people from all around the globe here. Sweden, Georgia, Toronto, of course, Mustafa in Toronto. Guys, okay, Alan.
That's down the block, man.
Yeah.
Snow. Which bands deserve to be in the big 4? Do we change it? Do we not change it? Do we make it the big 8? Do we make it a thrash fest? Do you don't give a shit? I mean, what is it, Alan? Just tell me what you think about this.
I have no problem with the big 4 as it is. I mean, Venom could be a worthy candidate, but this is the big 4. These are what everybody refers to. I mean, Metallica there. Neil knows he was there with Anthrax, so they deserve. They were right at the beginning.
Well, let's show this here, right here.
Alan, there we go. Look, there we go. Neil's got his on the wall. I got mine here. Mega Bonsai Records, Mega Force Records.
Yeah.
Right there at the beginning.
So I got mine somewhere too.
A lot of people, they don't want. They ask, why are these 4 in the big four? I mean, why isn't it another four? Was it a marketing ploy? Was it just a promoter ploy? Was it because they deserved it? Because there's two things.
Longevity.
You got to look at longevity.
Success.
You got to look at consistency, album sales, and you have to look at influence. So I'll go to Tony now. Tony, quickly. I mean, the bands that are in the big four, do they deserve to be there? Does it deserve to be the big eight? Do you think maybe Venom should have been in the big four?
I don't know. You've got the Teutonic bands with Sodom, Destruction, and stuff. They kind of did it. Those were the prominent bands in Germany, or the biggest bands in Germany. And I think when you look at the big four, at Megadeth, Anthrax, Metallica, and Slayer, I mean, those guys are the biggest with album sales and everything else. That doesn't mean the other bands, Overkill, Exodus, Testament, all those bands didn't make a statement and didn't, Dark Angel, and these great bands, but they became part of a scene. Flotsam and Jetsam became part of the scene. Those bands were the first ones that broke through, and they were the leaders. The first album, the Anthrax album, with Neil on there, I remember that coming and thinking, holy fuck, kill them all. The Slayer catalog, it's like, these were the big bands. And I think it's a marketing thing about thrash, but I think it doesn't denounce the other bands, but I don't think they should be replaced. But I think a thrash fest then put the other four bands, put Testament, Exodus, and create. Now it's the big eight. You got four opening bands and then the four leading bands.
I got to tell you something, Tony. So we call that in the expansion league. So in hockey, right, we had our first 6 teams, and we started growing expansion, bringing the Mighty Ducks, bringing the Winnipeg Jets. That was the expansion. So that's what you're saying. So let's go from the big four and let's go to the expansion here.
You got your football league, you got your ice hockey, you got your NBA, you've got your offense and defense. You got 2 teams running, and then you got your substitutes. Hey, I mean, that's what it is. It's all one big team, and you sub them in and out, and all those bands, those great American bands that burst in and created that thrash movement.
Let's go to Neil here.
They
Neil,
all deserve a crack.
Let's go to Neil. All right, Neil. So I mean,
hey guys.
Some people could say, and I mean, you were part of the big four, right? I mean, Neil was there since they played Metal Thrashing Mad at the I think it was Bulgaria, right? They did play that song.
Yeah.
Neil, I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you think Anthrax belongs there? Well, I guess you do, but do you think Slayer, Metallica, and Megadeth belong there, or should we make it a big 5, big 6, big 7?
Well, I think I have a different way of looking at it because I kind of analyze it in reverse. So I look at it, and I appreciate the compliments and flattery, but I think this is just earned by bands that should be in something. But before we even get there, I think you have to quantify what actually, who decides who this big 4 is, or this big 10 or big 8. I mean, the big 4 to me, I thought that was Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I thought that was accounting firms, the big 4. That was before. They use this terminology, and all of a sudden, the rock and metal community buys into it. So I think what actually is happening is you have some very shrewd think tank folks in the Metallica camp, maybe at the record label level or the business office, and they came up with an excellent marketing program that actually works. I think it's quite similar to the way that politics in America might work. They have an idea that they hatch, 30 years ago, and then they develop this idea, and then everyone goes along with the program, and they think, oh, well, this one versus that one, or what have you. So I think that you really have to look at the big picture and really look at what everyone has opinions. We all have our opinion of what we would want to put on a list. But I think
you know what I want to know. Are you pissed that you weren't included in the big 4 when they went on tour? Were you upset?
No, I'm not. I'm over having anything to do with bands that I've been in before. I mean, they're not the only band that I played in before, and I think it's good to be in a very positive environment. I really think it's important for people to embrace something that works well for them, that they are productive in, and that is a positive environment. And certainly that wasn't a productive or positive environment playing I mean, you don't even need to get into that conversation. But point
let
being,
me show you something. I want to show you something, Neil. Okay, I want to show you and Tony something, and Alan.
What do you got here?
So let me share my screen here, and this is
This
important.
one of your
This goes to what you're saying here.
PowerPoint presentation.
This is exactly what Neil's saying here. Let's go to the PowerPoint.
I mean, who decided who gets into this club? You know, I mean, Exodus, they were there right from the beginning.
Right.
Overkill, they were there right from the beginning.
Watch this, Neil.
Venom was before these bands. Venom was ahead of all these bands. So I mean,
can everybody see my PowerPoint?
No, but that's all right.
Yeah.
You can't see my PowerPoint. Tony, can you see it? No, eh? Okay.
Yep.
So this is what my PowerPoint says. It says Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. Now, for everybody who wonders why these bands are in, Metallica has sold 100 million albums worldwide. Megadeth has sold 15 million albums worldwide. Slayer has sold 15 million albums worldwide. And Anthrax has sold 10 million albums, plus Got the Time Was Played on Mars. So, I mean, Slayer was nominated 5 times for a Grammy Award. Megadeth was nominated for a Grammy Award. I don't think they won. And Metallica has just recently been nominated for a Grammy Award. So that's just the numbers, sort of, just to give everybody out there an idea of why.
Where's Motorhead? How many albums did they sell?
And you know what? This goes to my next PowerPoint. So now, hold on a sec, guys. I'm very prepared here today.
How about Judas Priest, Painkiller? I think that gets a nomination for the big.
Can you guys see this? Okay, so you said Motorhead, right? So Motorhead. Motorhead was formed in 1975. They sold 15 million albums worldwide. And you're right, Neil.
Ace of Spades and Overkill when most of these folks were still in diapers or not even a thought yet.
And let's take a look at Tony, Venom, all right? We talked about the album sales briefly. Nobody really knows. Yeah. I would guesstimate more than 2 million albums sold worldwide, right? But these guys, Venom, I mean, and you included, I mean, they started it all. Alan, right? You're talking about like 1979. They were coming out with extreme thrash, even the genre black metal.
Yeah, but they had to tag when sales were down. They had to group groups together, and they had to give a name. There's big three. Some tours were big threes. They weren't even big fours. They're big threes. I know a lot of women that think 4 is not that big.
Yep. How about Raven? They were formed in 1974.
And this is going right in the gutter, isn't it?
Sure. Raven was formed in 1974, and I could safely say, and I'm wearing the Raven shirt today, if everybody noticed, you know.
Hi to the Gallagher brothers, by the way.
Hey to John and Mark and Joe.
So to my point, I mean, okay, how about Anvil? Anvil. These guys were formed in 1970.
Yeah, you got.
I mean, I put Exciter there before Anvil.
And Exciter, 1970 as well. So I mean, so Tony, what's your thoughts about Venom being included?
Sabbath, Priest, Motorhead, of course. But I think the idea behind the Big Four was the Big Four of thrash. Yeah, and it's not the Big Four of just any metal. It's a Big Four of what became thrash metal. I mean, it was a particular style, and these groups fall in. There's a connective tissue between them all, of course. But like Neil said about Exodus, you could include Exodus and Testament, and of course Dark Angel. These guys were borrowing each other, and they were all playing around the same doors. But it's which bands came out and were more world recognized the quickest, and it was those bands. I think certainly from being a European, that's what we saw coming across, and the second wave that followed were the other bands behind, then the Testaments and Exoduses. We became more aware of the whole thing. So but Neil's right, it is a marketing ploy. It is a way to capitalize on something, and that's how the industry is, But I was speaking as a fan of the music and of the bands. It's like, I think if you're talking about who was more prominent in that genre, then those 4 bands, crossed America from the East Coast and the West Coast, and that's the 2 influences you've got. Anthrax were very different to Metallica. Mustaine was in Metallica and wrote so much material. That's why Megadeth has that synergy with them, and Slayer took it a different route, but it all came from the same coffee bean, it's just slightly different flavors. But I think they flew the flags across the world, both Slayer in particular and Metallica were kids who got shoved into a van with their gear, given a set of keys, and drove.
We're going to go to Neil now. We're going to go to Neil now. Neil. So here's a guy. So everybody who doesn't know, here's a guy who was with Metallica at the beginning in Jamaica, Queens, right?
Yeah. Well, we were in New Jersey. We were in Queens. We were all around. We were on the East Coast. But there's one other band that really should be brought into this conversation. I mean, many more than one, but. Yeah. One that I'm thinking of right at the moment that, their sound, if you just look at their sound, look at the album that they came out with and the song Fast as a Shark on Restless and Wild. I mean, how can you not draw influence from a band that, was completely polished, Wolf Hoffman and his amazing band, Accept. I mean, what a influential album. All of their albums, but the early albums, they have very fast double bass. They have basically the makings of thrash. And, along with Accept, you have to include Biff Byford and Saxon. What an amazing group that had, in 1980, 79 even, they're doing songs like, Machine Gun and
Motorcycle Man.
Like, Freeway Mad and all this stuff where it's fast, and it's double bass. So, really the sound, if we really want to boil it down to the sound, I think that and those aren't the only bands. I mean, there's other bands, but these bands I think were very influential in that thrash sound. However, they were already, I think, maybe a step above in the sense that they already were commercially viable and accepted and had record deals, were already marketed. So this is really a marketing, angle. This Big Four name. How do you feel that?
Let's
just extend it, make it the Big Eight. There's really no reason that Testament shouldn't be.
Alan, who would you include?
Even Machine Head sound nowadays is worthy. And let's not forget Pantera. Everyone just forgets about Pantera. I mean, come on, that band should be. Why were they not included right away? Why did they exclude Pantera? That's the question for those corporate executives that came up with this idea of Big Four. Well, what about Pantera? Why did you guys leave Pantera out? Because, so you left out Overkill and Exodus, but what about Pantera? I mean, Pantera was actually bigger than some of the other bands in the Big Four, supposedly. From what I can perceive. Maybe I'm mistaken, but you tell me.
What about Creator?
Creator, Destruction, Sodom, they belong. I mean, you're also geographically segregating, just America. What about Sepultura?
What about Canada?
What about Europe?
Where's Canada again? No. Actually, Razor, Exciter.
Exciter, yeah.
That's one of my great favorite band.
For me, it would be Exciter should be there.
Yeah.
No, but again, we're talking about thrash, right, Jim? They have to, like Neil said, it's all a gimmick, to get the big crowds. Let's name it the Big Four. There's lots of bands that were there before. Neil named them as well. For me, I missed the memo. I thought we were going to say, okay, guys, this is my question for you and everybody else out there. Who's survived? Who's endured the test of time out of these Big Four? Which four are more interesting today than they were when they started 30 years ago? That's my question to everybody today.
More interesting.
Well, the question becomes, who will we add to the Big Four? Who would you add?
That's not my question.
That's okay.
I said my question. You have time for your question. Let's answer my question, and we'll get to your question.
Repeat your question.
I said my question. I missed the memo. I thought this show was about who stood the test of time since the 80s.
All right, who stood the test of time?
Out of the Big Four. I didn't know we were going to turn this into the Big 16. 16's big. Four's not so big. 16's a big size. I know a lot of women would be impressed with 16. Four.
We need a bigger boat.
To be the Big 666.
Who's rowing this thing?
Apparently you are. So the question, Alan.
What's your question again?
You want me to get started? I'll get started. Hey, back then, Metallica came out. Anthrax, the first album. Okay. Slayer was there, but hey, didn't have the money. $7.99 was a vinyl album. I didn't have that. I didn't even, it was working. I was a kid. I was 14 years old. I had to save up my money to go and see which album am I going to get. So Slayer kind of got left behind, I have to admit there. Megadeth, Megadeth showed up a couple of years later. For me, thrash, I was on my way out. But hey, over the test of time, who I find interesting today, 30 years later, Megadeth. I mean, look at the stuff that Dave's done over the years, and the lyrics and the content, and just the sheer volume that he's pumped out.
All right.
So the guy that was maybe the fourth horse back in the 80s, to me now, it's one of the ones I'm most impressed with out of the big four.
All right. Let's go to Neil. Who stood the test of time from the guys from the 80s, like Alan said?
Well, who's making interesting music, who's really coming out with strong material. I mean, that's one aspect. And the other aspect is who's got the marketing, who's got the business behind them. Well, that's history is written by the victors. The losers don't get to write history. So that's where it gets manipulated. However, I would say put my money on Testament. They're coming out with great material. Put my money on Metallica, the brand new album. I mean, it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's killer. It's a great album. I mean, people are so critical, but when a band like Metallica, that try to find themselves, they went through some different phases and they come back to their roots and they come out with something strong.
Even Alan went to go buy it.
I mean,
great album.
It's a great album. So yeah, Metallica, they're you don't have to second guess that one. They're already in the club. But I think there should be other bands that could be part of it. However, who's the real question is who the people are that are making this big four. Who are those folks that are making this decision? And then
conspiracies.
Pepsi Cola.
Well, it's not a conspiracy. It's just business. They're making money. They don't care about conspiracy. They care about making money for them, not for you.
For sure.
That's right.
And the question really becomes,
Neil, it's show business. Neil, show business.
It's the business part that gets gnarly.
All right, Tony.
Let's get Tony.
I think I would say, for me, I think Exodus have been consistent with some great material. They got better and better from the time. I think Overkill. When I say Overkill play, it's like they've still got the energy, they've still got that magic, and it's exciting to watch them. I think on an interesting point, then it's Metallica, because you don't know what you're going to get. It could be this, it could be that, and but it's always something that they're experimenting, they're pushing. Consistency. Slayer, absolutely consistency. But I'd also agree that Megadeth, for me, I'm sure people will go one way or other, but for me, I can't find a piece of music on a Megadeth album that is shit. I think he's consistently incredible what he comes up with and the variations, and I think he's really pushed himself. And I'd also agree, I think his first album, Dave Mustaine's first album, was weak because he was chasing the tail of Metallica and he was trying to throw some rocks across the fence, and then he let go of it and just focused on being himself and coming out with some incredible stuff. So, they've all got very interesting things, but for me, I from those days, Testament, incredible new stuff, and but Exodus
I'm
still
going to go to some questions. Alan, let's see what the people have to
let's
say.
Let's go to the internet.
Let's see what the people have to say. First of all, this guy keeps saying Blizzard of Oz. Hey, Metal Voice, you like Aerosmith? Yeah, I mean, they're okay. Aerosmith's great, buddy. But
today, let's stick to today's theme.
Dangerous Toys is cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't Dangerous Toys like a hair metal band?
I think Megadeth and Anthrax have overall entered into their 50s much smoother than their two peers, and I'd especially believe that about Overkill. There we go. That's a good comment.
Yeah.
True about Megadeth, they're always putting out material. Metallica, we're sellouts. Fucking ballads. What ballads? Fade to Black, is that what you mean?
Creator right now are the heaviest, best thrash band in the world.
I would agree to that. I would say that Creator is making better music today than they ever have. And every album.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say Millie pushes the envelope on every album. On every album, he pushes the envelope.
Okay, Blizzard of Oz, Rob Zombie. I don't know where we're going with this.
Slayer have sounded the same for years.
There's a lot of truth to that too. I mean, I like their style.
I think they have.
Yeah,
I think they have. I think that's
good or bad?
Kerry's thing. He's this is the band we are. Kerry's always said this is the band we are, and this is how we play it. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that. Like good old Lemmy. He said we play rock and roll, and and that's how he played it. You know, he wasn't ashamed of playing that, and I don't think you should be. I think that's his identity, and that's what that is.
I don't know. That's a compliment or a denigration when you say they sound the same. Then Metallica does something different, they get criticized for it. So
that's right.
What are you supposed to do? Sound the same or not?
So if you sound the same, you haven't changed anything, and we don't like you for that. But if you change it up, then
we don't like that either.
You're too experimental. You're experimental.
I got a ballad.
A ballad. So, guys,
I think it's difficult for a musician because you want to just, like Neil's been in so many bands. Neil has an incredible voice. His performances on that first Anthrax album, but he never stops himself. He's always doing something, and he's always challenging himself. And I think that's what people in bands want to do. They want to challenge themselves. Some hit a gold mine, and they just want to sit in there. They're quite happy to sit in there. Some become corporate, and some just want to play music as real as it can be for the rest of their lives until they die. And I think all those shades make up the industry.
Tony, the new Venom Inc. album, is it the same old, or is it experimental?
Is there ballads? Is there any ballads?
We've got some ballads on there, and on Neil's new Death Riders, he's asked me to play the bagpipes because he's heard the opening bagpipe track of the Venom Inc. album. So we're experimenting mainly with drugs and Jack Daniels, and but we're hoping to get limousines out of the whole thing. So we're into the corporate thing, but we're keeping it real at the same time.
I got to tell you, for everybody out there, you have to pick up Venom Primeval. That's probably one of the best Venom albums ever made, and Tony's on bass and vocals on that one, and so is Abaddon and Mantis. They're in that. So Neil,
of course,
back to Neil.
2 cents here. I just lost my train of thought, Alan.
Yeah, it's happened, sure. Now to go back to if you change
ask the question.
You're standing still on the highway of life, you're gonna get hit by a truck.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep advancing, progressing.
That's what happened already when I joined Anthrax, so don't worry, it happened.
So for you, Neil, I know you could do the blues, you could do the soul, you can do the thrashing mad. Do you think a band should experiment, or should a band just sort of stay the same? And by the way, everybody out there on YouTube, if you have any questions for Tony and Neil, you want to ask them, by all means, ask them some questions, and hopefully they can answer them.
Or we might say fuck off, maybe.
Or we might say fuck off.
Yeah.
Hey, we have that. That is the new Creator record will absolutely slay the world. This Michael's a big fan of Creator, apparently.
And Primeval, I've vastly underappreciated. Old Metallica, I prefer up to the Black album. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that too. I really like the new album.
Yeah.
Did you guys want me to answer the question, or are you guys going to just chit?
Go ahead, answer the question.
So
Neil, it's a free for all here, Neil. We're just talking about anything.
Regarding the people that are posting on the chat room or on YouTube, so Creator, they're such an excellent band. They're consistent. They come out there full strength and just live and just in terms of what their releases are. They're very consistent. I think the Teutonic bands. I completely agree with Tony that Destruction is another band that's been extremely consistent and viable to the movement of thrash and the whole genre. So I think to name specific bands, by virtue of naming the bands, you're excluding others. So you have an exclusionary tactic by marketing, by pushing one thing, you're leaving out Pantera. You're leaving out bands that were a huge influence. Motorhead, Overkill. And when I say Motorhead, I'm talking about the album Overkill. I'm talking about Iron Fist. These were albums that were out. The first Motorhead album. These were albums that were seminal. They were influential. They were double bass. When people saw these bands like Accept, Restless and Wild, when they had double bass drums and they had these guitars. Judas Priest at that time, they were an amazing band. They had Hellbent for Leather back in the 70s. They had, Screaming for Vengeance. Okay, so Judas Priest was still on a single bass drum kit with Dave Holland. I know people don't want to mention his name, but hey, they were a great band with Dave Holland. They sounded great and they had amazing songs and they were very powerful. And they also did not really have that double bass image at that point until they got Scott Travis, even though they had someone playing under the stage during the Turbo tour with double bass. But the issue is that I think we're not giving credit to these bands that actually had the double bass drums like Motorhead. Why are they not in the Big Four? Why is Pantera not there? I mean, it's just a corporate marketing ploy. So the people that decided who the Big Four is are making money from that idea. And it's unfortunate for bands like Overkill and Exodus who are left to the court of public opinion with fans saying, well, what's going on here? Exodus and Overkill, they were part of this. Why would they not be included? Yeah. Venom, rightfully so. Venom, and an extension, Venom Inc. really, is part of that movement, because if you look at Venom, I mean, that was a band that had the music out there, that was in this direction. So how can you overlook these bands? I think what we're talking about here is a business model that was put out there to the public, and it got pushed in a direction and people bought into it. It's like when you put something on the mainstream media or in the mass media out there, and then all these media entities, suck it right in, and then they deliver it to the public, like any of these heavy metal news locations, like used to be magazines. Nowadays, it's not publications anymore so much. It's all online, right? I mean, that's like the Blabbermouth, Brave Words, Loudwire,
Metal Voice.
Yeah. The Metal Voice.
You got it, Neil.
Metal Shock Finland. The important ones.
Do you guys, I've got a question. Do you guys think being American, do you think there's a comparative between, we have a lot of festivals, as you guys know, we have it throughout Europe, tons of festivals, from Wacken, Hellfest, everything. But do you think, it seemed to me to be created by, Sharon and that corporate side of Ozzy, his business management, and then the bands that could appear on the Oz Festival seem to have to be paying incredible, hugely amounts of money to be able to appear.
Now we're getting into something else. Hold on, Tony.
You're nailing the cross, man. You're putting a nail in the cross, brother. You're right on point.
Yeah.
That's
you know what?
That's the way they think in America.
Like to answer this
They
question.
can't make money off of every penny, every concert goer, every fan. Let's just get their money, get their T-shirt money, get their. And unfortunately, the way that with downloading, with the whole scenario of how an artist, not just a musician, but we're talking about film, movies, about artwork. I mean, anything that's not nailed down, and they can put it on online.
Any shit we can sell. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a way to monitor it. So in other words, people, artists are back to the way it was in the dark ages, in the Middle Ages. You can play for the king's court and be like the court jester. You could be out there and get your cup begging for some coins, because that's pretty much what it's back to. Unless you're, a band like Metallica, you don't have to worry about that stuff. So for most artists, they have to worry about that. So getting onto a fest like, these big festivals that are in the United States, well, sure. Yeah. It's like, it's all who you know. It's not what you know. Yeah. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter how many times you can play arpeggio suite.
Hold on a second, guys. So I want to say something.
I agree with Tony. You don't have to have a Big Four or Big 17 in Europe, because the festivals are always there. People go because they like the band. The Big Four was coined, as Neil said, to get people to come throughout North America, get the money. They get the money because now we're talking, this is the Big Four, the higher ticket prices, and that's why these four are considered the Big Four of thrash. And we're talking thrash.
We're talking thrash today.
Okay.
So let me just, a couple of questions here. Okay. So
good questions.
All right. Neil, do you like Aerosmith?
Absolutely. They're a great band. In fact, Steve Tyler was in my rehearsal room. He showed up and started banging his head. And, we had the option to stop and try to take pictures and selfies and nonsense, or we just kept playing through the song. And the option was to keep playing through the song. And he was there the whole time. He had a hoodie on, and he was like, made this face like that.
and the lips.
It's like,
All right, Tony. Here's a question.
Here's a question for Tony.
Tony,
It was surreal. It was the coolest experience because I've always been an Aerosmith fan as a kid. So that was
Here's
great.
Necro Death Head 1 has a question for Tony. Are Venom Inc. doing a UK tour, and if so, come back to Sheffield?
Yeah, we start touring in 2017, and we will be doing full European tour, which includes the UK, and we will be including Sheffield. Thank you very much. We will. And can I just add to Neil's thing that I like Aerosmith too. And the other day when I went to my fridge to get some cheese, Joe Perry was sitting behind the cheese next to my yogurts. And I was like, man, do I take the cheese and the yogurt, or do I stop and take a selfie? And I didn't take a selfie.
You missed that opportunity.
Well, you know what? I think there's also another point here. Festivals and bands paying to play, right?
Yeah.
For example, let's say a Metallica is touring, and then the opening band, I don't know if this is the case for Metallica or not, the opening band has to pay Metallica to play. And this is like huge right now. I mean, a lot of younger bands, they can't get on the tours. They used to get paid. Like when Nazareth opened for Black Sabbath, Nazareth would get paid by Black Sabbath. But now it's the other way around. Do you see a lot of that?
Tony,
do you see a lot of that?
Are pitching for bands to put tours together, and then they're getting the bands interested in putting a tour together, and then they farm out to younger bands and get them to pay, bands that have the money, get them to pay, then it pays for your buzz, it pays for your stuff. And so the agent gets to get all of the shit that he wants to get for you to go out on tour paid for by these younger bands, and they think they're going out for the opportunity. And they are. If they're going on 8 o'clock at night in a venue that's full, but if they're going on at 6:30 at night where the doors are just fucking open, there's 3 people and a dog in there, they're spunking $10,000-$20,000 to play to fucking nobody 20 days. So what difference does it make? And I think it's wrong. I think that it's part of the industry now to get these bands that have got the money. But there's an interesting thing. Would you be part of the big 4 if you gave them $1 million and said, I want to be in there?
That's right. Tony, I got a question.
It depends. It depends. It depends what kind of.
Hold on. Tony, there's a question. If the new Venom Inc. album, will it sound more like Primeval or more like the earlier stuff or something new? You want me to repeat that?
It will have a combination. We want to keep it as real as possible, so we want to keep it really Venom. But of course, I'll be doing the vocals. We will polish it because so I think it'll have some production qualities. But the material will feel like it's live, like we've been doing live. It'll feel real, feel guttural, and have some polish like Primeval. So hopefully, it will be all of the above.
Yeah. So when I saw you guys at Heavy Montreal, I mean, you guys were on fire, and that was like 2 years ago now. And Neil, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Question for Neil.
Let me just interject on what Tony was saying. I was going to answer Tony.
Let's get to the people they want to ask, and then you'll get to.
But I got to say it. Hear what I'm saying?
Say it, Neil.
Say it.
Let's hear it out. So I was going to say, Tony, it depends. What kind of dog was it?
It was a poodle.
Oh, yeah, poodles, man. All
You
right.
don't want to play in front of poodles.
Come on. It could have been a
German
great
Shepherds, maybe.
Neil, here's a question from the fans here.
It's very English.
You ready? We got to answer the fan questions. They're the fans, right?
Poodles.
Fans.
Don't turn your back on the fans.
Neil, do you have any funny stories from the days with Metallica in the early 80s? Possibly something that hasn't been told before.
Well, there's plenty of stories that I can pull out of my hats. But I would say that one of the cool stories that was interesting for me, because I was in a situation when I was in France. This is after I left Anthrax, and I was there. I was flown over by the promoter, and the guys, Jack Starr had Red Forrester singing, and they were on this festival called Les Bourget. It was called the Breaking Sound Festival near the airport, Charles de Gaulle.
Okay.
And one of the bands that was on that bill was Tony Dolan's bandmates. It was Venom. And
yeah,
we had Mantis and Abaddon and Kronos. However, the guys that were cool to me, that were friendly and, were in the hotel I was staying that I was just bumping into, and I saw them backstage at the festival, was Mantis and Abaddon. And you never forget, people, when they treat you a certain way, whether it's good or bad, you tend to not forget those things. And at least for me, and when I was treated like one of them by, Mantis and Abaddon, I was like, wow, these guys are totally, like, they're so friendly and cool. Like, these guys would be my best friend if I lived in the same city or neighborhood. And the ironic thing is that, they're in Venom. I mean, it was.
What would be your Venom name?
They were the deadliest, most evil band at that time. They were, more evil than Black Sabbath. I mean, Black Sabbath, Venom. that had teeth on it. It was gnarly. And these guys were sweethearts. I mean, they were just like sweethearts. They were just like, they understood my situation. Like, I wasn't in the band. I left the other band. I'm over here in France. I'm kind of trying to figure things out. And they were just really cool. So I thought that was something that carried forward. And actually, when I just met up with Tony and Abaddon and Mantis, I was, talking about those days. And when we met up, and, these guys were like the same. It's like we were just right back in stride. It was like just the coolest bunch of guys. So in respect to your question earlier, about missing out on being part of something that I wasn't part of. I wasn't included. I wasn't, I don't feel that way because, these guys are the kind of guys that have a band that they're all in stride with one another. They're all stepping together. They're not like trying to outdo or outmanipulate, outmaneuver, like who's going to get their face on the cover of Rolling Stone or something. I mean, this is a band. This is the way it should be. I mean, that's why Venom Inc. is such a great band, because I was there at the whiskey with them, and they, these guys are very civil to one another. They act like human beings to one another. They're really, that's what really it's all about. It's like there's bands out there that were friends from childhood, and they are still friends. Like, how many of those big four bands actually, Metallica has the most members that are from the old days. I mean, Anthrax, I don't know. It's not an original band. It's a completely replaced, changed out band. One member. I mean, Megadeth, I'll give Dave Mustaine a lot of credit because, like Tony was saying, I mean, they're always top notch. And on this last go around, he has excellent musicians. They consistently put out strong, super material, and very professional, very strong, very consistent, extremely consistent, probably more consistent than most of the other big four. And I would say that, yeah, Slayer's in that loop as well, even though they have less members and it's not by their own choice necessarily.
Okay, I got a question for Alan. I got a question for Alan now.
For me.
Alan, what would be your Venom name? If you were in Venom, what would be your Venom name?
Crucified Apple. Crucified Apple.
I'd be like something like Hurricane Penguin.
Crucified Penguin.
How'd you get Demolition Man, by the way, Tony? How'd you get Demolition Man?
I just break things.
Let him come into your house and find out.
Neil, what would be your Venom name? Like, you
shit.
join Venom tomorrow. What would be and Tony would let you in. And what would be your Venom name? You gotta have a Venom name.
Yeah, I have to. Have to think about names because that's an interesting one. I'll come up with one for you.
Here's another question.
Brilliant.
For Neil, which great metal singer would you consider one of your favorites? There you go.
Which one? Well, that's a hard question because it's
pick one, I guess.
It's pushing it to one singer, which, that would be really hard to say which metal singer is my favorite. I have a lot of different favorite singers for different reasons, but
let's go with metal.
I would say that, I'm not going to pick the singer just because they're the popular choice, because that's it's kind of sad when people just jump on the bandwagon. It's easy to pick someone and say, oh, well, let's just jump on this person's bandwagon because they died and everyone's worshiping them and idolizing them. Well, it's not just that they died and now they're all of a sudden resurrected in the media. But I think, there's singers that are alive. There's singers that are not alive. For me, it was a singer that projected, like, in a room when they're in, let's say, an opera house, when there's people in the back row, and he brought them to tears. And he brought these people, he projected his voice and, was able to blow people away in the back row of a big opera house. That's Enrico Caruso. Look it up.
Enrico Caruso.
Talk about heavy metal. Well, Rob Halford, pretty tough guy to beat. That man is quite a singer. He's unbelievable because when he first joined, first being part of Judas Priest, not being the original singer, he took Priest in such a direction, and his voice was, stellar. His writing is, just his overall, he was a guy in a playhouse or something doing theater plays, and became a heavy metal singer. I mean, Priest wasn't even they were a blues band when they started. So I think that's ironic. I think Dio also. I mean, he was in Ronnie and the Prophets. So it's like he came from the doo-wop, and he evolved and transformed into god of all heavy metal singers. Just an amazing. Like the Elvis of heavy metal. I mean, unbelievable. And Dio, I mean, his standard, his level of execution, and, two different singers, Halford and Dio. But I would say that, if I had to pick one, that's really hard. But both of those singers are completely amazing. Of course, Bruce Dickinson, I saw him live at the Forum. I was invited to go hang out backstage and go see Iron Maiden. That Dickinson live, I mean, wow. I mean, I've seen him before, but this was like, to see him, I saw him at Madison Square Garden when they were doing Number of the Beast, and that was wow. But seeing Bruce play this last tour and how powerful and strong he was, it was quite impressive. And I think, you're trying to pigeonhole me into saying, well, which is my favorite singer, but
it's taking a long time there, Neil. You got to get one singer.
Well, drink a beer. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right, Tony. Let's go. Tony, favorite bassist.
Oh. Favorite bassist.
I know you're a pretty mean bass player. What would be your influential somebody who are you influenced by as a bassist? Geddy Lee.
Influenced. Again, the same problem happens with Neil, because picking one, because you take influences from everybody, I guess. But I could tell you who I think a great bassist that I like. I mean, I think Metallica at the minute has one. Rob Torello is probably underused quite a bit. Unfortunately, but everybody from Flea to Geddy Lee, I think for me, Lemmy was my god, so because I liked his style of playing, but if you're into technique, then, I have to move towards the funk stuff, and that's when brings in people like Flea, the slap stuff, but Billy Sheehan, I think, is like an artist with the bass. It's like it's an extension of his insides and his outsides, and he plays that piece of wood with that metal, wound metal strings like nobody I've ever seen, and I think for me, he's a true inspiration when I hear him. But that doesn't mean John Gallagher influenced me and a million other incredible players. So, I'm old school as well, Geezer Butler, his sound, his way of playing the rhythms. I hope that what I did was I took bits of everybody, and put that into my own work. And if I'm a fifth as good as any of them, then I owe it all to them. So I think always push yourself forward, but amazing. I think top of the pile for me, if I had to be pushed on it, I'd have to say Billy Sheehan, because his fluidity is beyond something.
He does the hammer-ons too, right? Billy Sheehan.
Everything. I mean, when I was at NAMM, I went to see him play a show, and this was a few years ago, and just was really up close, and I just was in awe. I couldn't move my face away from staring at his hands. It was like, holy shit, just incredible.
So I'm just let's end off with this.
What are you gonna do here? You got the Grammys.
The Grammys. All right.
Is everybody staying awake at night because they're worried about the Grammys? Forget the Grammys. We got the Metal Voice Top 10 coming at you.
Part two. Not released yet, so nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows what's gonna happen.
We got Neil's #1 coming up. Forget the Grammys. Stay tuned on the Metal Voice.
That's right.
What do you guys think about the nominees? Okay, so best metal performance.
Performance.
I don't know. I guess they
not song.
So we got Megadeth, Dystopia, Korn, Rotting.
How you perform the music. Is that it?
I don't know what that means.
Or is it just like one show you gave a good performance?
Godzilla has Silverman, Barones. I don't even know who the Barones are, and Periphery. The Price is Wrong.
I know it's a big word, Jim.
What do you guys think about? I mean, have you heard about the Grammys? And then you have Metallica doing for the best rock song. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And
they don't play metal. They play rock and roll.
And then best rock category, you have Gojira. I mean, best rock album category. I mean, who are? And then they're in the same category as Weezer and
Blink 182.
And Blink 182. I mean, guys,
Panic at the Disco.
Quickly, just a few seconds on, what do you guys think about the Grammys? We'll start with Neil.
Well, you're asking the wrong guy for that because, I mean, when you're talking about what the average American or the average person here in the United States believes, and then they're coming up with a list of bands that they think are relevant to that specific list or these Grammy voters. I mean, are these the same people that are watching CNN and Fox News? Is that where they're getting their information from? I mean, where are they getting their ideas and news from? Where are they finding these bands? Because there's other bands that should be included, and that goes also for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But it goes back to that. It goes back to that Big Four idea. It's like who exactly is in charge and who's voting on this? And it's like, how do you quantify? I mean, Gojira, that's an excellent choice because that's a band that deserves to be in that mix. And far be it from me to say who deserves to be in or who doesn't deserve to be in there. But I think, all the bands that are working hard, working at their career, out there putting out their art, they just all deserve to be considered. There's not a band that doesn't if they're working hard to try to, be out there and put themselves out there. But there's other ones that are record company creations and so forth. Yeah. So I think what we're looking at is we're simply looking at something that is complete opinion. There's opinions are like what we consider them to be. There's many of them. And I think it's really unfortunate that some of the bands, there's not a more fair, everybody always complains, oh, well, the voting system, there's not a more fair way. Well, what would be fair? If you get your band or the one that you would vote for, or should it be the one that I vote for? I mean, we all have opinions. I think really the bands that have the money and they put the dollars into the advertising, they have the promotion vehicle. A band like Metallica, how are you going to compete with that? I mean, their music's great, they're great, but they also have the promotion vehicle. They also have their name recognition. So I think that's part of it, but there's other bands that really should be considered. And I think there's always these weird things like what happened with Metallica and Jethro Tull. I mean, why did Jethro Tull get a Grammy and Metallica not get one when they should have? I mean, it's ridiculous. So after that, it's like there's bands that are not even, part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's they started to include a few more that maybe we consider that should have been in there. But, how could you not have Deep Purple in the Hall of Fame for all those years? It makes no sense.
Alan, you want to say something?
Well, Ian Anderson just called, and he's pissed off because he's not part of the best metal performance at the Grammys this year. So, Ian, maybe next year try a little harder, buddy. That's all I can say.
Yeah, exactly.
Get another album out, Ian.
I'm all for Gojira. That's a great album, but I mean, rock album?
Not rock.
I mean, they're up against Blink 182 and Weezer.
But how do you judge, all the performances? They might do 30 concerts. You got to judge each performance for each band. It's a performance.
No. But this is best rock album.
Oh, that rock
That's
album.
The category. Yeah. So Gojira, I get it. It's a great album. I get it. People love this new album.
Yeah.
It's industrial. It's 90s. It's, it's moody, right? But it's metal. It is metal. It is hardcore. But Blink 182 and Weezer in the same category. Who is making this stuff up? And it's to Neil's point. It's the guys with the money. So, Tony, your thoughts on the Grammys and the categories and who should be in it and who shouldn't be in it?
Well, I think the thing is that when we back in the day when in England, in the north of England, across Sheffield, Birmingham, all of those cities, when the new wave of British heavy metal, or when even metal was Priest and Motorhead are the first Iron Maiden albums, when the whole movement was happening, Saxon, Girls' School, it was all just metal. We didn't, I would go to a concert, be at the front of the stage, maybe singing AC/DC with Bon Scott, and I had my Motorhead patch on, and the person next to me had Styx, Toto, and Mahogany Rush patches on their jacket.
Fog hat.
I didn't turn around and go, I wasn't turning around going, what the fuck you doing here? This isn't that type of shit. And they weren't going to me, what the fuck you doing here? This isn't that noisy shit. We were put there to celebrate just this band, this music. It was all part of our fraternity. You can't categorize AC/DC go to one of the arena shows, and when they play, you know, Back in Black or Hell's Bells, the fucking whole place is jumping up and down. Those people go to all kinds of jobs. Some of them go back to their rock and metal collections, and others go to the bank, and others go to Kmart, and others go to the supermarket to give you your bread, and you don't know who they are. If the music moves you, then that's important. But I think, like Neil's point there, is, you know, Weezer, Blink-182 against Georgia or a metal band, and it's all classified as rock. When I went to Canada and grew up in Canada, we'd put the radio station on, and I could put 10 radio stations on, and it was rock, 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 country and western, rock, 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 country and western, rock, rock, rock. They played everything from fucking Foreigner to whoever. In England, you know, you had to tune into the BBC on a Friday night for 1 hour of rock music. The rest of the time, it was just pap. It was just pop, and it was industry driven, and that's exactly what the Grammys are. Just like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just like all of that. You know, Baby Metal. Do you know how many shows Baby Metal played the clubs for years? No, hang on. No, they didn't. They were just put together by some
They're babies.
fucking Lego funding and sold. But now you've got bands that have been knocking their fucking selves sideways and they don't get any coverage in the press. And yet Baby Metal, who have been molded from some fucking chocolate, get the front cover of everything. Why? Because it's bought for them. The videos are millions of dollars paid on videos sold for them. They're marketed, and that's what Neil's talking about.
Yeah.
The industry really.
Go ahead, Alan. You want to say something to this? Go.
We're gonna recap.
We're gonna recap one more thing here.
Okay, recap. We've got Venom Inc. Their greatest hits album is coming out in March.
No.
Yes.
Metal Voice. Here's a late breaking news. We saved it to the end of the show. Our very first festival, the big 162 bands. And Neil's in LA. Neil, great job with the interviews, buddy. Keep rocking it. Man. And Neil's got the big album coming out, big tour. He's going to be part of the Big 62.
Hey, man, I'm trying to stay away from that number, but I'm far enough away that it's good. But I had to put in a couple of more thoughts to what Tony was saying just to close out on that. And, you know, actually heavy metal and rock and roll is actually almost like a dinosaur in the business, because you have the younger generation now, and they're being, you know, force-fed into their music bloodstream, EDM and hip-hop. And I mean, this is something that is, I would call it actually the dumbing down of the population, because, you know, when you take away the math, you take away the intelligent thinking, the highly creative thought process from the brain, which is what, you know, classical composers have. It's what, you know, a lot of, you know, neoclassical musicians, a lot of guitar players, drummers, you know, people that are, you know, bass players, people that are writing, and there's math and there's notes, and there's, you know, you're talking about people that are not using these methods anymore. They're just, you know, sampling, or they're not even singers. They're coming up with rhymes. I mean, you know, and there's so much, I think, convolution out there, and people have all these choices and all these, you know, they want to, like, I think the purity of what Tony was saying about going to the festival back in the days when he went to these festivals and just loved all the bands. I think the experience in Europe, for me, recently playing in Denmark, was exactly that. It was going and appreciating new bands I never saw before. That's how you get introduced to them, by going there and embracing them. And some bands you're going to like more than others. And, you know, it's not about being an elitist, but it's about appreciating what appeals to you. And I think having that opportunity is much more open-minded in Europe still versus in other countries, especially in the United States, because you have this pay-to-play mentality, this buy-on mentality, and it's all about business. It's not about the love of the art or the love of music. And I think for me, I really love finding out about new bands that appeal to me. That's, to me, very exciting. You know, you can't go into the record store anymore, because where do you find a record store? Well, maybe now with vinyl coming back, but, you know, I already got rid of tons and tons of vinyl albums. I mean, it takes up a lot of space. But anyway, so the point being that really it's beautiful to go to a concert, go to these festivals, and be introduced to bands that you never heard of, and now you love them because they have great music, and if you get to meet the guys, that's pretty cool too, or the gals. And
Right.
there's some bands that are really inspiring. They're not just in the heavy metal genre, but for me, you're talking about Grammys. Well, someone who just got a #1 ARIA award in Australia, Jimmy Barnes. I mean, how come he's not even in the Grammys in the U.S.? What an amazing artist!
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
there's up and coming artists, especially in the UK. There's artists that I really appreciate, like Xander and the Peace Pirates, who are phenomenal. They're great music, and they're touring with Manfred Mann's band, Earth Band, and it's not heavy metal, but we would be pretty narrow-minded if we just said, oh well, screw these guys. Like when I was in France back in '84, there was still this aggression, this mods and rockers thing. It was still the punks and the rockers, and it's like, people were hating on you because you had long hair and they had a shaved head. So I think that mentality has been pushed back into the mainstream media, into the mainstream society. And I think that, in the US, this EDM and this whatever attitude, this mentality of laziness and, poor management of parenting and so forth. I mean, it's really bad because when people start preferring electronic elevator music to actual instrumentation of real music and singing, like passionate singing. I mean, I applaud when people are fans of artists like Adele, because at least it's music and it's still something that's creative in the younger generation. But when you have, this EDM and hip hop that's saying the same message over and over, like, okay, we know you got a Cadillac and a gold chain. That's cool. And some ganja and, babes and a hot tub on your, limo. That's cool. But
hold on. I'm going to ask Alan now. All right.
Let's be viable about our music.
Okay,
what's our passion?
I'm going to ask Alan. Alan.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a quick little news thing here.
There's a news thing here happening.
I just want to know your
opinion. He's going to share us. Floor Jansen.
Was just
beautiful. Floor Jansen.
Nightwish,
Amazonian. We met her at Heavy Metal MTL.
Was just Slayer is a dreadful band, she said. And, then she got a lot of flack for that by Slayer. And I wouldn't say by Slayer. Sorry, not by Slayer.
It's
by
a joke.
Slayer's fans. No, it wasn't a joke.
Yeah, it was a joke.
It was not a joke. She said that she's entitled to her opinion.
Yeah.
She doesn't like Slayer. So your thoughts? I mean, but the whole metal community went bonkers. Your thoughts, guys. And really quickly, Tony, your thoughts. I mean, should artists, if they don't like a certain genre or maybe a certain band, should they just shut their mouths?
I think yeah. I think you can opinionate, and everybody has an opinion, as Neil said earlier. But I think as a musician, if a guy or a girl or anybody in any style is brave enough to stand on stage and play anything or commit, because what you're doing is you're in the most vulnerable position you'll ever be in. You've created something, and you're standing there giving it to an audience. It could be great, it could suck, it could be the best thing or the worst thing, but what I always hold is that the fact that they're doing that, they're giving of themselves, I appreciate that. So,
yeah, okay.
I buy an album and listen to it and like it or not like it. I don't then go, this is shit. What the fuck? This band should. Well, why would I do that? It's personal. It's mine.
Alan, and I ask you the same question. Should bands in positions of power, they're in position of sort of power, right? Should they put down other bands if they like them or not? And Floor Jansen, she's
Nikki Sixx. Sorry. Okay, what difference does it make? Everybody has an opinion. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, right? So, I mean, who cares? You go with the flow. I mean, we get criticized. Everybody gets criticized. But you have something to say. You do it respectfully. It reflects on the person. And she didn't say she hit it. It's not her thing. She just won't listen to him. And she admitted Slayer's probably not listening to Nightwish. So what's the problem? It's probably true.
Here's my 2 cents, guys. Here it is. So in my family, they always told me, if you ain't got something good to say, then don't say it at all. Attention-seeking behavior. When you got to put someone else down, like Tony's saying, I mean, Tony's got the feeling of love for other bands, and that's exactly what it's about. I mean, you got to appreciate that, Slayer and Nightwish, they're both doing really well. And we could all, aspire to be doing as well as they are. But people in their position, people listen to what those folks have to say. And, you know, maybe some of these folks like hearing themselves talk. Maybe they like, you know, doing things so they can hear their own voice or hear their own words in books or whatever. It's like an interview. Like what, you know, what difference does it make what she thinks of Slayer? And what, you know, I mean, I'd be interested to know what Slayer thinks of Nightwish or Floor Jansen. Do you think that they'll say the same thing that she would? I mean, it's just, it's like, it's unnecessary. It's like, there's fans of both bands. So you're turning off, you know, by saying that about Slayer, you know, for Nightwish, it's like they're in the same genre almost. Why say that about to fans that potentially could be coming to the same festival that both bands will be in?
Just so you know, she was doing a test, just so everybody knows, with Metal Hammer, she was doing this sort of test, and they kind of like lured her into saying that.
Well, you know how it works. I mean,
Yeah.
Just go out.
You know, they want to find the headline. They want to find that headline that they can, you know.
So all respect to Floor Jansen, all respect to Slayer. I mean, sometimes the media, you know, they kind of, you know, sensationalize things, right?
The joke, going back to the Grammys and how much of a joke they are. You want to talk about best male performance or singer or song, whatever you want to call it, in a rock category.
Yes.
How come Glenn Hughes never gets nominated?
That's true. That's true.
Right? If
Yeah,
there's
you're right. Yeah.
there
Yeah, never.
every year,
I mean, fuck, you know.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a long list of that.
Yeah. There's a man who
Glenn is an amazing singer, and you know his new album's fantastic. So I mean, not even looked at by the Grammy folks. So yeah, it's you know, another good one that I think has a nomination is Monty Pittman. So that's great album, and you know, great artist, great guy too.
Really
and
nice guy. Yeah.
Monty has a solo album, his own album. I think Billy Sheehan's playing on that as well.
Tony,
just a minute, Jim.
Yeah,
we got Ian Anderson. He won't stop calling us. This is the third time. So somebody unplug his phone.
Lost his flute.
Ian, stop calling. Next year, it's too late. You're not nominated. Go next year. Try harder. Stop calling us. We're busy.
You know,
King Diamond get nominated.
he's lost his flute.
King Diamond win for best performance. I think King Diamond did.
Best dance mix.
That's right. That's right.
You know what? King Diamond's performance was so shocking to me how good it was. For most unbelievably shockingly good performance, they get the award, and screw the Grammys. Who cares?
That's what we're gonna do. That's Neil's got an idea. We're gonna come up with our own best, shockingly great performance. And we're gonna come next year, Neil. 2017. That's a great idea. That's what we're gonna do.
All right, let's summarize everything in.
We'll do it the same time as the Grammys. We'll do our own.
Exactly.
Neil, you're on to something.
Who would ever expect that King Diamond, that King could hit every single note and do it even better live? And the band was that good and sounded like the album, but even better. It's like, how did that happen? I mean,
we'll get Tony to vote.
Stunning.
We'll get Neil. We'll get our own categories. People can live stream. We'll get it. That's the same time the Grammys. We promise you. Same time the Grammys.
The Metal
Voice will have their own performance.
The Metal Voice Grammys.
Exactly.
Is it going to be a performance?
Neil, that's a great idea.
You call it the Mammy.
All right. So let's summarize everything here. So Tony, new Venom Inc. album.
Greatest hits with one ballot.
No. New Venom Inc. album. Studio album, not greatest hits. Studio album sounds like Primeval, but a little bit different.
Off the floor.
Right? A live album, perhaps. Am I hearing a live album? I'd love to hear a live album
too.
The old and the new, which would bring up the old songs, you know, refresh them, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a documentary.
Yeah.
By the way, Tony was also in the Blaze Bayley documentary.
Great.
Anybody knows? Neil Turbin is going on tour in Denmark. Going to meet the Danish.
No, I've already been there.
Right?
That was over the summer. We're going to Prague, Czech Republic, and to Poland.
Prague.
We're going to Warsaw.
Okay, beautiful. And Neil's got the Metal Beast still. He's working on that album and I've heard a little bit. And it sounds like phenomenal. And that's pretty much it. Alan, you want to add anything?
No, I missed the memo. I don't even know what the show's about today.
You got any beers left?
No beers, no time. The World Tour just came in, sat down, started the show. Now we're going for the beer.
It was like 6:25. Alan goes, I'm here, sits down.
What
are we doing?
Only in Canada, it's like minus 40 out right now. When we go and grab a cold beer, I've never understood that. It's freezing outside. The first thing I want to do on a Friday, grab a cold beer. You think we want a hot chocolate or something? No, cold beer.
Nuts.
snowing here. It's snowing in the UK. And just so everybody knows, we got 3 different time zones here. So we got LA, they're 3 hours back. We're at 6. Well, actually,
warm LA.
And Tony, you're approaching midnight, or you're past midnight over there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I'm past everything.
So this is our first. I don't know Robert De Niro love metal. Yes, I get a lot of that Robert De Niro thing there. You guys like the Robert
You're talking
De
to
Niro?
me.
Yeah.
Talking to me.
You're talking to me.
You
All right, guys. Thanks for being on the show. Neil Turbin, Death Riders, ex-Anthrax, Tony Dolan, the Demolition Man, Venom Inc. Pick up their albums, support them on tour, and guys, we will do this again. I like this. We'll think of another topic. This time we'll fill in Alan prior.
Yeah, that would help, Alan. Yeah.
Way to go, guys. Hey,
Jimmy,
lots of
this
fun.
Is the first thing. Alan, we're doing this topic. What kind of topic's that? What kind of topic's that?
We'll always find something to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about
The
that.
big 78.
And Neil,
Can
we're gonna probably do the NAM live feed. Maybe we'll do some sort of
NAM,
live
absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Could I
Gus
do
G
one-
interview with NAM.
greatest hits from NAM.
That's right.
There you go.
Greatest hits from NAM.
Good.
All right,
could I
fellas.
just
Guys,
say one-
pleasure.
could I say
Thank
one
you,
thing
everybody
before
out there
we
who
go?
actually
Tony.
took the time to.
Wait, Tony's got something to say.
Tony's got something to say. And the last word to
Something
go
really
to.
quick. Really quick. We at the top of the hour, which is beyond it now. Of course, we started with about the big 4 and about the influential and who should be in and who's influential. Can I just say that the only album that you held up that I saw was Fistful of Metal. On that album, there's a singer called Neil Turbin. That's the guy sitting just right there. And I want to say that.
Of course. Here we go. Let's bring out. This is. Here we go.
There you go.
Scott Ian never liked this album cover.
There you go.
That was Neil's
That
neighbor.
album, for me,
Yeah, because it was my idea.
for
That's
me,
why.
For me, that album has never been.
And he's got a
better by
fistful
that
of
band.
metal.
That
With
album has never been surpassed by that band, in my opinion. And that was the band. That was the album that introduced me to Anthrax, and I thought this is a fucking great band. And this guy sitting here, who also is on that album, is still relevant now. We've just talked about him playing. We've just talked about his new music, and it's still relevant. He's a great person and a great vocalist, and still relevant. That's the point we try to strive with should be in the big 4, and that's about longevity. An artist that is still interesting, that is still pushing himself all these years later, and it's still relevant. And that's Neil Turbin sitting right there. So that's why we're here, and that's what it means for me.
Yeah,
That's what it means.
Member of the Metal Voice team.
Well, I love you. I love you too, Tony. You're badass, and
Reporter.
I just think that my aspirations is to be as Venom Inc. is, because Venom Inc. has been taking the world by storm, coming out strong, coming back, getting on big shows, doing big tours, and putting out great music. And I think that you guys have really carved out a niche and really have expanded on that. And my aspiration is to be like you and Venom Inc., because I think what you're doing is not only surviving but thriving, and I think that's the name of the game. But it's also being dedicated to your craft, and you've done this for a long time, Tony. You've been at it for a really long time, and I think we're here on the show, The Metal Voice, because this is what we love. We are passionate about the music, passionate about not only our art but embracing the art of others, and I think that's what we're expressing here today, is that the love of the whole scene, the whole music. And it's not to say who should be in the scene, who should be out of the scene, but it's to appreciate the scene and embrace it and share that experience. And I think with all the crap that they're pushing down our brain pan with irrelevant non-music like EDM, and it's just like, it's not to put down their genre, it's just like,
I got a question from the fans. You want to hear this?
We gotta love what we have already, and promote those bands, not put down, Slayer or put down Nightwish. I mean, both are relevant bands, and they should just, like you said, who cares about what musicians' opinions are of who should be president or who shouldn't? I mean, talk in your area of expertise. What guitar strings should you use? Maybe think about that.
And make
By the way,
music.
Somebody's
Make
watching
good
from you.
music.
Just so everybody knows, and we got to say this. Lunchtime in New Zealand. So, I mean, that's where we're reaching. We're all the way in New Zealand because they're waking up there. They're having lunch. Maybe a sandwich.
You wake up at lunchtime. You have a nice life.
Maybe a sandwich.
The waves go the other way in some beaches.
Kiwis.
kiwis.
The beach waves go out instead of in some beaches there. You can surf
So Neil, I know we're dragging this here, but Neil, we got a question. This guy's been asking over
You're breaking up the bromance.
So you're saying that we got to go, but you're asking questions again.
Well, you know what? I'm just going with it.
Well,
okay, here we go.
Well, I'm going. My beer's getting warm.
This is the Metal Voice extended version, Christmas version.
This is the bonus version.
It's a 12-inch.
Neil, what's your favorite Venom album?
Black Metal.
Black Metal.
That was easy. See, short and sweet.
Sure. Tony's online here. You're supposed to say something like Primeval or something. What's going on?
I mean, it's black metal because I that's from when I was a kid. I mean, I was.
Yeah,
of course, it has to be black metal.
But and we're talking to songs and just the band. But yeah, I think that the sound of Venom now, to me, Venom Inc. I think it's better than ever. I think it doesn't hurt Venom either. It's positive for everyone. It's actually a good thing. It brings awareness. It brings the band, the music to the people. That's what it does. And in today's world, it's like, if you're not front and center, if you're not on people's minds, out of sight, out of mind, then you're not relevant. So
yeah,
it doesn't hurt.
And
it helps everybody.
I always said about Venom and the Venom catalog. To me, as a fan and as a person who's been part of it proudly and is now doing it with my brothers again, I don't care what point you join Venom, whether it's the late 80s, my period, the early 80s, the now, the metal black. It doesn't matter when you join, because whenever you find it, history before you and after you, and that's what's important. Finding the music, not when you find it, not which piece of it. Just find it, and then you'll discover everything else.
This is my story about Venom. So
it's a
welcome to hell. I forgot to.
I'm gonna tell you. Oh, yeah, of course. Welcome to hell. This is my story, and I told Alan this.
Okay, let's hear the Venom story. Your Venom story.
I had Venom. I was so guilty. I just felt like I was going to go to hell, so I had to buy a Striper album just to counterbalance everything. And somehow I felt better. If I listen to Striper, I'll feel better about the Venom. And that's what Rodney was saying.
Did you switch between tracks? Did you take one off and put the other one on?
I think that's what Jimmy did. I think he's got
I go, no, I'm going to hell. And then I just played it on Striper. Okay, I'm all right now. Everything's good. All right, good.
Brilliant.
I'm 16 years old, Okay, lunch is pumpkin soup, actually. Great show. Thanks for watching in New Zealand. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We're going to let you go. Thank you, everybody in the internet land. Make sure to catch part 2 of the top 10 metal albums of 2016 with Alan and I.
Coming soon.
Sometime next week. We'll count them. We're going from 5 to 1. Who's going to be number 1, Alan?
Who's going to be number 1? Greatest album of 2016? Only time will tell. You got to tune in to find out.
There's 2.
Yeah.
There's 2.
Maybe there's 3. Maybe there's 4. Who knows?
Blink 182.
Yeah. The big 4.
Ian Anderson, stop calling.
All right, guys. Later. Bye.